Dun, 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 dun. I feel the need to make that sound to set up today's episode, make it feel a little bit more grandiose because we are talking about creating super fans for your business. Every single person listening right now benefits from having super fans. Super fans drive business, generate content, and should be every company's BFF. However, many companies either don't know what to do to create super fans or they're unintentionally doing the wrong things, which turns people away. I'm so excited for today's guest because Brittany Hodak is an award-winning entrepreneur, author, and customer experience speaker who has delivered keynotes across the globe to organizations including American Express and the United Nations. She has worked with some of the world's biggest brands and entertainers, including Walmart, Disney, Katy Perry, and Dolly Parton. She founded and scaled an entertainment startup to 8 figures before exiting, and she is the former chief experience officer of Experience.com. She has a new book out called Creating Superfans that we're going to get into today. And Forbes had this to say about her debut book, quote, "If you have customers, you need this book, period," end quote. Well, welcome to Marketing with Empathy, the podcast that helps content marketers more confidently navigate the world of brand storytelling. I'm your host, Sarah Panus, and I've spent the last 20 years creating and growing successful editorial brand storytelling strategies, teams, and operations. People are craving connections, and I'm on a mission to help brands better connect with their audience by creating content people actually want to consume. Think of this show like a creative content marketing jam session mixed with chicken soup for the soul. Let's quickly hear from today's sponsors and then soak in all of Brittany Hodak's advice for how to create superfans.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkinsporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
Okay, Brittany, a lot of times companies, when business is slow or when they're struggling, they talk about how they have an awareness problem. What do you say to companies that are saying, oh, we just have an awareness problem?
Well, 99% of the time, when companies tell me they have an awareness problem, what they actually have is an apathy problem. It's not that people don't know that they exist or they don't know what they do. They just don't care because they haven't been given a reason to. And I think this is something that is plaguing businesses of all sizes, of all ages, because we're so quick to think like, oh, I'll just throw money at the problem. Like, I'll just run some more ads. I'll just come up with a new campaign or buy some more eyeballs. But awareness is never the problem. It has never been easier to target exactly who you want to talk to, both online and offline. The tools exist to get in front of everybody that you want to get in front of. The problem is all of your competitors and people who don't necessarily compete in the same space as you, but are competing for those same customers' eyeballs and attention spans, are also able to get in front of those prospects and customers. So you've got to solve your apathy problem. You've got to come up with messaging that makes someone care so that when you do get in front of them, you capture their attention. They're not needing to see your message 8 or 12 or 15 or 25 times before they care enough to form an opinion or decide if they're going to think about you again. You've got to stop them in their tracks with a message that connects your story to theirs in a way that makes them care. Because if you can't overcome that apathy problem, you're never going to have a business that's sustainable in the long term.
Completely agree. And it is hard when you're internal, like on the corporate side, and you hear that and you see so much money being thrown. The example you just gave, I've seen it firsthand where so much money is being thrown in one area where you're like, let's just like love on our customers some more. Let's like talk to like our field employees more. Let's like nurture that sequence. And it's a little bit like chicken before the egg, but you have created a model then which helps kind of take this big thing of how do you create a super fan? You know, what is a super fan? How do you create these lifelong fans of your brand so that they don't have apathy, so you don't have that issue, so they're going to want to keep coming round and referring you. So you've created this model called the super model that you outline in your amazing new book, which I've read, called Creating Superfans, How to Turn Your Customers into Lifelong Advocates. And it's a great book. I was like on the pre-order list. And so I like right when you announced you were coming out with it, I signed up and waited and got it. So love the book, huge fan. And anyone who has a customer needs to read this book, in my opinion, because it grounds you and gives you a framework for how to engage and how to act and how to, drive results for your business. So tell us more, if you will, about each step of your super model.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for all those kind words and for reading the book. I'm so glad you enjoyed the book.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get into the super model, but one thing that I want to say really quickly before we get there, just to address what you said about people feeling that frustration when they're on the corporate side. Even if you personally don't have the ability to affect what the ad spend is or how the dollars are being spent, remember that you and every other person in your company are all in the experience department. So that's something that it took me a while to understand when I was a corporate employee. It's not logical that customers will make a determination about how they feel about an entire brand based on one experience. Like, we can all agree from a logical standpoint, it doesn't make sense to form your entire opinion about a company with hundreds or even thousands or tens of thousands employees based on one interaction with one individual. And yet, as customers, we do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we go in and we have a terrible experience and we're like, I'm never going there again. I don't like that restaurant. I don't like that store. I don't like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side, if we have a great experience, whether that's with a call center operator or somebody who's seating us or anywhere in between, we're like, wow, what a great company. Like, that was such a great experience. That person really helped me out. So if you feel that friction of like, oh, I wish my company did things differently, just remember that every one of your interactions really does matter. You're in the experience department. Everyone around you is in the experience department. And when you're talking to a customer, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many because you're working on a marketing campaign or, you're working on strategy or you're working on what your social media plan is going to be, remember that you have the power to create superfans in those interactions.
Excellent point. Perfect. Okay, well, that's a great tee then. We're all in the experience department. So now as we're in the experience department, how do we use your supermodel to do that better?
So the supermodel is a 5-part framework that I put together to really give people a primer on what I think are the most important components of customer experience. And we are living in an experience economy right now. People don't just buy products or services anymore. They buy the experience they're wrapped in. And to set yourself apart, you truly have to differentiate yourself based on experience. But here's the thing. Everything is experience. Every phone call, every touch point, every ad, all of it is part of the totality of what a customer is thinking of when they think of you. So the supermodel is a 5-part framework that if you follow these 5 pillars, you will set yourself up to have incredible success creating superfans. And this is very simple, and it's simple by design because, oftentimes we overcomplicate things to the point of our head just starts spinning and we're like, well, I don't know what to do first, so I'm not going to do anything. Or we just get so entirely overwhelmed that we stay in the lane that we've been in. So the supermodel is simple to implement, simple to measure, and simple to build on as you grow. And it's this. S is start with your story. U is understand your customer story. P, personalize. E, exceed expectations. And R, repeat. And we can, talk a little bit about each one of those if you want, but that's it. That's the model. That's the secret. That's how you create superfans.
So let's dig into each one of those. So with S, start with your story. Obviously, we talk a heck of a lot about storytelling on this podcast. Tell us more about how you advise starting with your story and what that means.
Well, I say a lot and a lot in my book that superfans are created at the intersection of your story and every customer story. And what I mean by that is if you want to overpower that apathy we were talking about before, you've got to make someone care. You've got to become sticky in their brain. You've got to show them how your thing is relevant to their life. And the quickest and most memorable way to do that is by sharing your story, by sharing your uniqueness. Oftentimes I ask people, what are you the best in the world at? Why should your prospects choose you and not your competitors? And they're baffled. And I'm like, well, if you don't know why a customer should choose you instead of a competitor, how in the world are they ever going to figure it out? You've got to give them a compelling reason. So starting with your story looks a little different depending on what industry you're in, depending on what your role is at the company, but it's essentially your purpose. What's your origin story? How did you get from where you started out to where you are right now? And how is what you're doing relevant to the lives of your prospects and your customers? How is what you're spending, 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 hours a day working on important to their lives? And if you can tell that story, if you can showcase your uniqueness or your superpower, you'll begin to stand out from the crowd and overpower that apathy, because all of a sudden, now you're not just another commodity provider that they're like, oh yeah, here's 20 companies who do basically the same thing. You start to differentiate yourself. You start to become seen as a category leader or maybe even a category of one, so that people don't want to work with someone who does what you do or someone who offers what you offer. They want to work with you because you've differentiated yourself.
Yes, yes. I recently just became a certified story brand guide, and the extra emphasis around that clarity and how you can say it concisely as well and consistently across all of your content is huge. So definitely love that, the intersection of your story and your customer's story, because that's what gets your customers to want to turn their head and care and know that you're actually resonating with them, right? So then we go to you, which is understanding your customer story. Tell us more about that.
Yes. So because I talk about that intersection, it's only natural that after getting clarity on your story, the next step is to really deeply understand your customers. So in the book, I talk about this 1-2 punch of empathy and authority, showing up not just to share what you know, but to show that you care. And obviously, I know I'm preaching to the choir here on this show, but to really understand what your customers are struggling with and what transformation you can help them get to the other side of, that's how you begin to connect your stories in a way that's really going to resonate.
Excellent. And then we go on to P, personalize.
Yes, P, personalize is one where you can have a lot of fun. We are no longer living in a world where dear customer is acceptable in an email, or you can send out mail to residents, or you can have one ad campaign for everybody. People expect and demand personalization. There was a study recently that said almost 75% of customers are offended when things are not personalized to them because we're getting used to it, right? We compare our experiences not to the best experience we've ever had just with a direct competitor, but with anyone anywhere. So the personalization that we all experience every time we pick up our phone or log into our computer has raised our expectations for every other part of life. So the P in Super is all about personalizing every part of your customer's journey to them, what they want, what it is that's going to make them say, wow, that was an amazing experience. And in the book, I talk about some of the little things, some of the big things. Some of these are things that you can automate. Others are ones that are going to require human touch and attention, which is why you should automate the other ones to free up more of your people's time to focus on those that can't yet be automated. But it's all about creating a journey that feels really personalized and special.
And then we get into then the E, which is exceed expectations, which is something everybody always says, you want to wow them, you want to exceed expectations, but not hardly anybody consistently does it, right? So how do we think about that?
So in the pillar of E, exceed expectations, I talk a lot about something called intentional experience design. And that's really getting clarity on what it is you want your customer to feel when they work with you. How do you want them to feel at every stage of the journey? If their friend said, what was it like to work with that company? What would you want the response to be? And then intentionally architecting the steps to ensure that reality happens. So a lot of this is about getting everyone on your team on the same page, creating alignment and enablement so that everyone on your team knows exactly what the goal is at every stage of the customer's journey. Because if you haven't done that, if you haven't intentionally designed what you want the experience to be, it's going to be fractured and it's going to vary. And sometimes it's going to be amazing and other times it's going to be less amazing based on maybe the time of day or the time of the month or the location or the employee that somebody gets. And you don't want those factors to have outsized emphasis. You want the experience to be amazing by design, not just defaulting to like whoever is there that day.
And then it rounds up, the supermodel ends then on repeat.
Yes. So a quote that I share in the book that I love from Elizabeth Arden is repetition makes reputation and reputation makes customers. So in the final pillar of the supermodel, we talk about the repetition that is required both in terms of the way you think about customer centricity and the way you show up again and again and again for your customers, but also the systems and the processes that you can employ to automate the things that are able to be automated to continue to ensure that that human bandwidth that you have is being best used to connect with your customers in real ways. I'm a huge fan of automating things as long as the customer will have an equal or better experience. I am not a fan of technology for technology's sake or looking to automate things just to replace people when that will be a detriment to the customer's experience. I always say, and I talk about in the book, you should use technology if and only when it's going to improve your customer's experience.
Something that really stuck out to me as I was reading the book was just, the repeated mentions of the ways that a company's employees can help turn those customers into lifelong advocates. And on page 60, specifically, you talk about employee origin stories. And as a storytelling strategist myself, I love tapping into employees and customers and all the people tied to the brand, for their stories. And I was wondering if you could just explain how companies should be thinking about employees when it comes to their storytelling plans, because I think they're often a very missed segment.
I love this question. They're so often a missed segment. And, I think, like I was just reading an article today about a tweet that went viral because of somebody sharing this ridiculous question in a job interview. The application process was recorded 2 to 5 minute video about how life's been going for you so far and upload it. And the person was like, yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous. I will not be doing that. I think one of the things that so many companies get wrong is they put so much focus and intention on hiring, quote unquote, the right people. They make them jump through all these hoops. And then when they start, they either say okay, forget everything you thought you knew. This is who we want you to be from now on. They're trying to almost automate that person, or they give them very little information after they start. It's just okay, you're here now, and they get training on the job, but not training on the company and the story and the uniqueness and the differentiation. So in the book, I talk about this idea of taking advantage of your employees' origin stories, where your company's story intersects with them, because they are the living embodiment of your brand. Your brand is not your logo. Your brand is the employees on your team, the interactions that exist for your customers. So to use those, to showcase those by having an employee talk about why they chose to come work at this company, what it means to them. It's not just, a paycheck. It's a purpose. They're spending something they'll never be able to make more of, which is their time to be a part of this company. So whether it's somebody's first job or whether, they've been a corporate employee for 35 years, people need to be able to articulate why they love being a part of your team, what that means, what they contribute. And on the corporate side, what that means is you need to embrace the uniqueness and the individuality of your employees. It doesn't need to be about like, oh, we care all about your unique strengths and abilities until we hire you. And then we're like, okay, here's how we do things here. Forget everything you thought you knew. I make a joke in the book about like the Avengers. And part of the beauty of the Avengers is they've got all of these superheroes who have different powers, different perspectives, different abilities. If you had 15 Hulks, like that would be a detriment in a whole lot of situations because there's only so many problems that you can like Hulk punch your way out of. You know, it's important that you also have the perspective of Iron Man and Black Widow and Hawkeye and, you know, all of the others.
You also get into in the book an outline that I think is really useful for everyone listening, which in addition to your supermodel, which is around the process that brands can follow to make exceeding expectations the norm. And so you talk about map, measure, and maximize, those 3 M's. Can you just talk a little bit more then about how brands can use those 3 filters to help make sure they are exceeding expectations more consistently?
Yes. So this is part of that intentional experience design that I talked about, which basically looks like deciding, okay, if I could wave a magic wand, what would my customer's experience be like from before they ever know I exist? So the first second that they Google me or they land up on my website or they're reading something about me on social media, all the way through they've been a customer for years and they're telling people how great we are. What does that process look like? So the first step is mapping. And in the mapping step, I talk about the before, during, and after part. And most businesses spend a disproportionately large amount of their time and attention on the during. So from the time they know they've identified somebody as a lead to when they've closed the deal. But in the book, I talk about all of the steps that are important before you know that customer exists, and then all of the things that are critically important after, wherever you start to spend less attention, whether that's when you close a deal, whether that's, you know, after renewal, whatever that step is for you. So the first step is to really map all of those moments, not just in the during phase, but in the before and the after, because it's very hard to move to the second step, which is measuring until you know what they are. So first you map all of those moments, then you measure how you're doing. So along every journey, there are going to be opportunities to elevate what would otherwise just be like a forgettable interaction into a moment that matters, a moment that people are going to remember, that they're going to talk about, that they're going to share, that's going to have an outsized impact. So once you've mapped out all of the interactions, you can say, here are the few at each stage of the journey that we're really going to like double down on. We're going to focus on making sure that this thing is amazing and we're going to get it right every time. How are you going to measure those moments? Is it CSAT? Is it NPS? Is it how much viral pickup we get? How many, people come back? How many people refer a friend? I talk about various different measuring strategies in the book. One of my favorite is the fact that I really truly believe there are only 3 ways that you're ever going to make a customer feel, and that's better, worse, or exactly the same. So in the book, I talk about this concept of net positive, net negative, and net neutral interactions, and how you can very simply measure those along this intentional experience design map to see immediate impact and results. And then the third step, or the third M of that intentional experience design, is maximize. That's how you figure out all of these measurements. Where are you going to then maximize so that you're exponentially increasing the impact of each of those things? And it could be as simple as, these are the moments where I'm going to ask for a review. These are the moments where I'm going to ask for a referral. These are the moments where I'm going to come in and tell this customer, hey, we've identified you as somebody that we would like to invite to this customer advisory board or this, frequent customer club or whatever it is. So figuring out how are you going to use those moments where you now have somebody who loves your brand and is feeling really great about it. How are you going to use that for exponentially greater good?
And what's the best way for people to connect with you and find your book, Brittany?
Well, people can connect with me at my website, BrittanyHodak.com. And if you want to check out my book, you can get the beautiful hardcover edition that's available everywhere books are sold. You can also get the Audible version, which I narrate, or the ebook version, which is also very fun. So if you want the Audible or the ebook, obviously you can find those on Amazon or wherever you get your ebooks and your audiobooks. And the hardcover is also available on Amazon, but at your local indie bookstores, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, and everywhere else that you get books.
Excellent. And you had mentioned maybe there might be a little bonus offer for my listeners. Is that something we can talk about?
Oh, that's right. Yes. We almost forgot about the best part. So, Sarah, because I love you and I love your listeners and I wanted to give them something fun, if you go to brittanyhodak.com/gift, you'll be able to download the first 4 chapters of the book for free.
Woohoo!
And in those first 4 chapters, you get a lot of the stuff that we talked about today, including the outline of the supermodel. So it's very like 10,000 foot version, not the deep dive, but brittanyhodak.com/gift. And you can get the first 4 chapters of the book for free.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. Everyone listening, please check it out. Take a listen. And I definitely recommend purchasing the book after you read the first 4 chapters for free. Alrighty, let's recap. 1, companies don't have an awareness problem. They have an apathy problem, according to Brittany, i.e., your audience lacks interest. To change this, follow Brittany's 5-part supermodel. S, start with your story. U, understand your customer story. P, personalize. E, exceed expectations. And R, repeat. 2, share your employees' origin stories where your company's story intersects with theirs, because company employees are the living embodiment of your brand. I loved when she said that. It is so, so true. 3, exceed expectations by following Brittany's framework to map, measure, and maximize. And then 4, I have a bonus for you guys today. I have bonus footage from Brittany and my conversation where she walks through the proper way to apologize that will exceed expectations. It's covered in her book, but it's such an important aspect of exceeding expectations in our daily relationships that I had to chat with her more about it, learn from her steps, and hear how even a 7 and 8-year-old were practicing it the week she and I chatted. This bonus footage is only available to members of my free Marketing with Empathy Slack community. I'm going to be sharing more bonus footage like this, and you will exclusively be able to listen to them and hear them on the Slack community. So if you're not a member yet, the link to join is in the description of this podcast episode. So take a look there. You'll find the link. Just sign up and you'll be entered in. Don't forget to snag the first 4 chapters of Brittany's book, Creating Superfans, that Brittany is giving all my listeners at brittanyhodak.com/gift. I've personally read the book. It's a great read, and I highly recommend it. Until next week, God bless. If you're hearing this, I know you work in the world of content marketing, but here's the deal. You want to be a confident marketing leader, but marketers don't have enough time to do content marketing well. I'd love to help you check storytelling projects off your marketing to-do list using my 20 years of frameworks and methods so you get your time back while confidently engaging new and existing customers. For example, I'm a certified story brand guide and would love to help clarify your messaging strategy for your overall brand as well as your editorial storytelling content plans. Let me help you plan, implement, and scale your content plans. There's a variety of ways we can work together, including day rates, online training courses, all the way through to longer-term retainer projects. Schedule a discovery call with me to discuss your business needs by going to my website at kindredspeak.com. That's kindredspeak.com.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe.